Guide is an adaptation of R.K. Narayan's novel, The Guide. What's remarkable is that it was made in both English and Hindi. While the Hindi version was directed by Dev Anand's brother, Vijay Anand, the English adaptation was directed by Tad Danielewski and written by Nobel Prize winner Pearl S. Buck. The basic plot of the three versions, the Hindi film, the English film, and the novel, is the same. A tour guide, Raju, falls in love with a married woman, Rosie, fights the society to be with her, ends up losing her, and then is forced to become a spiritual holy man. As fate would have it, the village he resides in faces a severe drought, and Raju undertakes a 12-day fast, convincing the villagers that it will bring rain. However, it's important to note that each of the three versions differs significantly from one another. Surprisingly, none of the creators seem to favor the other iterations of the story. R.K. Narayan, the original novelist, famously remarked, "The movie is a misguided guide." Before we move on, I would like to point out the differences in each of the versions. It shows how the vision of the director and writer can produce such stark contrast in the end result. That said, the focus of this video will be on the widely popular Hindi film. To begin with, we'll talk about the end. Each of the stories has a different ending. In the novel, there's no clear indication whether Raju dies or is just unconscious. Also, he feels it is raining, but it's just his feeling, and there's no clear indication of rain. In the Hindi film, Raju dies and it rains. While in the English version, his faith and fasting is in vain as he dies, and the sun is still burning in the sky. So, there's a much better redemption arc and closure in the Hindi film compared to the rest. Similarly, a film without songs in Bollywood is still considered tricky, let alone in the 1960s. And I'll emphasize later in the video how music of the movie is a character in itself. Also, Rosie does not come back to Raju in the novel. In the English version, she only returns because the government wants her to convince Raju to break his fast. It's not out of love like in the Hindi version.
He must interrupt her performance to render a service of national importance at the request of the government of India.
The same is for Raju's mother. In the Hindi film, he gets what he always wanted, Rosie, his mother, his friend, and yet he chooses to let it all go to save the village. So, to leave worldly pleasures in the discovery of self and God plays out much better in the Hindi movie. Much of the love in the novel is one-sided. Rosie considers him as a friend, later a manager and a stepping stone. And here's how it plays out in the English movie.
You're the world's #1 artist.
You're a brother to me.
Oh, no.
In the Hindi film, the two have a honeymoon phase, and the themes of love, betrayal, and jealousy are better explored. That said, the novel is still considered a masterpiece, having won the Sahitya Academy Award. Well, now that we know how each of them differ, let us dive deep into the film, that is, the Hindi film. We'll examine its narrative complexity, groundbreaking music, thematic richness, cultural impact, and its lasting relevance. Here's why Guide is considered one of the greatest films. The movie starts with the hero of the film coming out of jail and opting not to go back to his hometown. Rather, he wanders. The Lost Tour Guide theme was recently tried again by Imtiaz Ali in Harry Met Sejal. And Coming back to Raju, the guide. S.D. Burman's superb song Straight Away makes us question, where do we go from here? And despite wondering and questioning, Raju again becomes what he always was, a guide. Only this time, he is a spiritual one, and not just for tourists. The film then goes back a couple of years, where Raju is a crooked tour guide. He is not a one-dimensional hero, he is a complex anti-hero who struggles with his own flaws and desires. This nuanced portrayal of the protagonist is a hallmark of the film, offering a refreshing departure from the traditional black and white character archetypes. Along with Raju, we also meet Rosie, a classical dancer trapped in a stifling marriage to Marco, an archaeologist. Rosie, portrayed by the brilliant Wahida Rehman, is a character who defies societal norms and expectations. Her character arc explores themes of artistic passion, personal freedom, and the price one pays for following one's heart. The roller coaster love story of Raju and Rosie takes us through several emotions of love, ambition, betrayal, existential crisis, and personal growth. It is impossible to talk about Guide without discussing its iconic music, composed by the legendary S.D. Burman. The soundtrack has not just stood the test of time, but over the years has become an integral hallmark of the Indian music history. And I believe that the songs of the movie not just aid the storytelling, but are more of a character in itself. And then there is the choreography by Hira Lal. The poise, the grace, and the elegance of the dance sequences. There's little to say than to just watch and be mesmerized. There's this quote by Friedrich Nietzsche: "I would only believe in a god who could dance." Dancing is one of the truest forms of liberation, and when Rosie dances, it is an act to liberate herself, not just from her stifling marriage and society, but from herself. And the moment her relationship with Raju hits the rocks is also when she stops enjoying her dance. She finds no joy in her work or in her life anymore. More on their relationship later. And for Raju, Rosie is the dancing god whom he worships. She is also his source of bottomless wealth and fame. The combination of the deep lyrics, exceptional timing of the songs, do note that Saya Biyamayan is immediately followed by the iconic It is more like the hero and the heroine conversing in songs. The intricate art design, the dreamy voices of Lata Mangeshkar and both Muhammad Rafi and Kishore Kumar make this a masterful musical. It is hard to say what kind of movie Guide is. Yes, it's a love story. It's also a spiritual movie. But then, it's a musical, an existential question, and a philosophy. It's also exploring a tourist city in the 60s. There's just so much happening in the film, so let's try exploring a few of the themes. To be in love with a married woman and being in a live-in relationship with her is considered forbidden even in the current Indian society, let alone some 60 years back. While I saw all the oldies in the theatre whistle to the love of Raju and Rosie, I wondered how they would respond if their children decided to engage in adultery and live in.
सब कुछ छोड़ना पड़ा तो मैं हंसते हंसते छोड़ दूंगी
तुम्हारे काम और नाम में हम दोनों की मेहनत है इसे छोड़ने की नौबत नहीं आएगी
और जब बच्चे होंगे तब
जरूरी तो नहीं कि शादी होते बच्चे हो जाए
और ये कोई जरूरी है कि शादी अभी हो
ऐसे भी कोई मजबूरी नहीं लेकिन इतनी दूरी बहुत ज्यादा हो रही है
The love story was ahead of its times. It still is. And unless there's some seismic shift in our society's outlook for love, it will always be. While the titular protagonist is Raju and his journey, it is as much about Rosie and her inward journey. As mentioned earlier, dance is an outlet for the heroine to express herself. And when she gets what she always wanted, she still doesn't feel complete.
It doesn't matter what we want. Once we get it, then we want something else.
It comes at the cost of all the sacrifices one has to make in the pursuit of one's creative calling. This is all the more relevant in today's time. We live in the age of artists and influencers. Tyler Durden never resonated more when he said,
We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very pissed off.
And despite how easy it is to achieve instant success these days, not enough is talked about the costs of achieving the same. We're all looking for our redemption. The follies of the past will be forgotten, and we'll ride with pride into sunset. We'll figure ourselves out. We'll win the world. Ah, we're a bunch of fools. Raju's journey towards redemption involves self-sacrifice and atonement. His willingness to sacrifice his own desires for the greater good is a powerful testament to the film's moral complexity. Both Raju and Rosie grapple with the question of identity and moral authenticity. And the big question is, why despite being together and all the success and fame, do Raju and especially Rosie fall out of love? My friend says it is because Raju ultimately became like Marco. He stopped being the charming guide he used to be when he met Rosie. Without that Raju, Rosie herself is lost, trying to figure her next step in life as whole. And when Raju is in prison, he realizes that there's no way back for him.
मुझे तो नए सिरे से ही शुरू करना होगा.
Throughout, he fights the world for Rosie, his mother, uncle, neighbors, his friend, everyone. He even fights Rosie for the sake of his ego for once. But in the end, he forgives them all, embraces them all, and moves on in search of himself. This completes the character arc of Raju from self-absorbed to being one with the self. The film is a cultural touchstone that left an indelible impact on Indian society, and there are several reasons why. In more ways than one, Raju is an impression of Lord Krishna. He is a tour guide, often driving around shotgun in his friend Gafur's car. He is also a spiritual guide and a preserver of the village, where he resides as a holy man. He solves the people's problems and makes sure the village has amenities like school and medical clinic. He has the unwavering faith of Bola and the villagers. Lord Krishna too is the charioteer and guide to Arjun, and neither are plain goody two-shoes characters. I suppose that makes them so lovable and relatable. Krishna never got to live happily ever after with Radha. I see the same for Raju and Rosie, who never get their happily ever after. Now, it's hard to say what was the inspiration behind R.K. Narayan's original story. When we say fast until death, we think of Gandhi. Considering that it wasn't even 20 years since his death, and the way people consider Raju as a Mahatma, it is fair to say he could be one of the inspirations. But there's another story I stumbled upon. It is the legend of Maharishi Sandipani, who fasts and meditates to protect the famine-affected people of Avantipuri. This is just my guess, as it seems similar to Raju's penance. Of course, it could be R.K. Narayan's completely original idea as well. Also, throughout Raju's monologues, we see verses from the Bhagavad Gita.
आग में फेंक दो मैं जलूंगा नहीं, तलवार से वार करो मैं कटूंगा नहीं. तुम अहंकार हो, तुमको मरना होगा. मैं आत्मा हूँ, अमर हूँ. लगता है आज हर इच्छा पूरी होगी. पर मजा देखो, आज कोई इच्छा ही नहीं रही.
When Raju becomes famous for his fast and people from around the country and foreign lands come to catch a glimpse of him, that I believe is the Vishwarup of Lord Krishna, the cosmic avatar. Dancing was taboo for women, for men too. Raju motivates and inspires Rosie to fight this taboo. He wants her to dance her heart out. And then there's the extramarital affair as mentioned earlier. Another theme, which gets overshadowed among all the brilliant themes, is that of a man living off a woman's money. Raju was a confident, self-assured man. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought a married dancer to his home. But when Rosie becomes an acclaimed dancer, there's this scene where she accuses Raju of living off her.
जब वो कहता था आदमी को औरत की कमाई पे नहीं रहना चाहिए,
तो तुम्हें गलत फहमी है कि मैं तुम्हारी कमाई पर रहता हूँ. और तुम भूल गई हो कि मैं वो सीढ़ी हूँ जिसका सहारा लेकर तुम ऊपर पहुंची हो. भूल गई हो कि तुम्हारी कमाई की एक एक पाई मेरी मेहनत का नतीजा है. तुम डांस सकती पहले भी, लेकिन दौलतमंद हो मेरी वजह से.
हाँ राजू, मैंने कब इनकार किया?
No wonder he becomes increasingly jealous of Marco. Of course, this theme has been later explored in various films.
Swami! Purnamidaha! Purnamidam! Purnat Purnamuduchyate! Purnasta Purnamevaya! Purnameva Vishishyate! जरा इस श्लोक का अर्थ तो करके बतलाओ. क्यों नहीं समझे? अरे समझेगा कैसे? संस्कृत आती हो तब ना. क्या बात है? Don't laugh like two big fools. You're a couple of crackpots, and for generations you've been fooling these innocent people. And it's about time you put a stop to this.
नहीं समझे पंडित जी? राम शास्त्री जी? नहीं. कैसे समझे? अंग्रेजी आती हो तब ना.
In today's age, this scene would have surely trended the boycott hashtags. Now, irrespective of your political leanings, hear me out. This is a typical Indian village in the 60s. We had not even celebrated 20 years of independence. The Sarpanch, Shastri, and Pandits were the judiciary, administrative, and governing heads of villages. Theirs was the final word. Even today, a lot of religious places have separate rules for VIP and the common folk. It is a business. So when the two holy men see the villagers gathering around Raju, they see it as a threat to their business. A young gunslinger in town, we need to take him down. As for Raju, he has given up on his family, friends and love. He knows the two holy men are insecure, and thus he taps into his inner Machiavelli to put them in their place. In the same vein, there's a scene where Raju allows his old friend Gafur in the temple premises, who later goes on to offer namaz in front of a statue.
लेकिन तुम दूसरे धर्म के आदमी हो, तुम अंदर नहीं जा। Raju, Raju.
Thus, I feel, Guide addressed issues about challenging authority within both religions, and at the same time showed a subtle theme of national integration.
जी, मेरा धर्म क्या है? स्वामी, प्यार मेरा धर्म है, दोस्ती मेरा ईमान है.
And the iconic shot of Dev Anand in the saffron shawl. I believe it makes the narrative so complex that people wouldn't know today whether to boycott or patronize the film. The film is a masterpiece with regards to its cinematography and editing. We have talked about the songs and dance sequences. Now here's a bit of trivia. This song unusually starts with an antra than a mukta. Rosie breaks the pot, her symbolic marriage, and proclaims herself alive. Before the song, she gives a tip to the gungru seller and buys her freedom from Marco. The shot where Raju picks up Rosie's shoes as she dances to glory. How many times have we seen that? Oh, and the elegance with which Wahida Ramayan enacts the intricate statues of the fort. Also, look at the importance of windows and mirrors. The last shot of the song where Rosie moves from darkness to enlightenment through the eyes of Raju. I believe the constant portrayal of windows, curtains and doors throughout the film show the barriers in the relationship of Raju and Rosie. It also presents us a voyeuristic view of their love, like we're one of the village folk prying and judging them. Such subtle yet obvious undertones. This song originally has 4 antras, and while those days 3 were quite common, the 4th antra was left out of the final rendition. And ironically enough, I believe, the one that's left out is the best part and fits aptly for Raju.
औरों की उलझन क्यों कच्चे धागों में झूला क्यों कच्चे धागों में झूला क्यों नाचे सपेरा मुसाफिर जाएगा कहाँ दम ले ले घड़ी भर ये छैया.
To sum it up, Guide is not merely a film, it is a work of art that invites viewers to explore the depths of the human experience. Its characters are flawed and relatable, its themes are universal, and its storytelling is timeless. Decades after its release, Guide remains a testament to the power of cinema to transcend time and culture, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of those who have had the privilege of experiencing its magic.
न सुख है न दुख है न दीन है न दुनिया न इंसान न भगवान सिर्फ मैं सिर्फ मैं